I definitely have a lot of conversations with people looking for jobs who are very focused on the job and the title. And I try to encourage people to think about it more about the company and the opportunity, because you can go get perfectly formatted job for you, but if it's at a poor company, it's just not going to go anywhere and you're not going to learn much. So I try to encourage people to be more prioritizing the company and the opportunity, the product. Do they have, good people backing them more so than anything else?
I'm super excited to have Notion sponsoring us today. Notion is used by thousands of startups around the world as their connected workspace for everything from engineering specs to new hire onboarding to fundraising. If you're a startup, you can get 6 months free of Notion with unlimited AI, which is valued at over $6,000. You can access the limitless power of AI right inside of Notion to build and scale your company and team with one tool. So head over to notion.com/startups and select Next Play in the drop-down partner list, and then enter the code NEXTPLAY at the end of the form.
Hey everyone, I'm Ben. I'm an angel investor, former founder, and most recently spent the past 5 years working at Notion. I'm super excited to welcome you to the Next Play podcast. We're bringing on really amazing people to talk about career moves, picking companies to start or join, behind the scenes of decision making, what they've learned. And today we have Amanda. Amanda joined Figma in 2018 when it was at $1 million in ARR and built out the global go-to-market functions, sales, marketing, support. And before Figma, she joined Zendesk as employee number 13 and built out their marketing and sales teams. She's done incredible things over her career, and I'm super excited to dive in. So welcome.
Hey, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming along. So kick it right off. So in 2018, you joined Figma as the chief customer officer, where you built and led all the go-to-market functions. I know Figma was a pretty small company at that point. What convinced you to join?
All the things that people say. I mean, it had great investors, it had a great product, and it had great people who I met, including the CEO, Dylan. We really hit it off. But I think what really cemented it for me was I talked to some customers and people who could be customers before I joined. And they were just people who used it, loved it in a way that normal people shouldn't love software. And so that was a really big sign to me. And someone who I chatted with, who I trusted, who didn't use Figma, said to me, I can see in the future that we should be using it. And so just the combination of all of those conversations really helped me understand the potential of what Figma was.
Do you remember how you went about that? How did you find those customers and have these conversations?
Well, I asked Dylan for some names of people it's good to get direct references. But I also had a lot of designers in my own network since working in marketing. We, of course, work with designers. So I asked a lot of people in my network who were the target customer.
And do you remember what your interview process was like for joining the company?
Yeah. I first met John Lilly, who was the Greylock investor who'd done, I think, Series A. And he definitely got me excited to meet Dylan. Told me some stories about Dylan and his character and how he went about building the company and the product. And then I met Dylan. I still wasn't fully mentally ready to have a full-time job. So it took me a while just to warm up to the idea of waking up to an alarm clock again, because I was having a really nice time not working. But I got there just through a lot of conversations with him. We ended up having a dinner together at my house where he and his girlfriend at the time, who's now his wife, and his co-founder came over, and he had gone to the trouble of baking a blackberry pie that he picked the blackberries at his mom's house and made homemade ice cream. It was this gesture that said a lot about him and what he was like and how much he really wanted to work with me. And so it was very memorable.
Sound like someone hard to turn down if they went through all that trouble to make you a BlackBerry Pi.
It was fun. Great pie.
Who knew he was also a baker?
I know.
So after joining, what was unique about Figma's culture early on?
Well, actually, the pie actually says a lot about the culture, because I always think the culture of a company has to do with the founder as well as the product and who you sell the product to. And that was definitely the case for Figma. So if you think about design teams and designers, they're very passionate people. They're creative. They care about the details in their craft. And Figma attracted people like that. So you had a lot of passionate people who thought of themselves as makers, much like the pie. And so, yeah, it was across the board, whether you were in product or engineering or go to market, everyone had that kind of maker mentality.
I've heard over the years that Figma has been able just to attract really incredible talent. I mean, I have a lot of really talented friends who have spent time there. Why do you think that is?
Well, the product's really great. It's always fun to sell a great product. And I think the buyers are fun people to interact with. So on the go-to-market side, you have a great brand to be able to market. You've got a great product to be able to sell, and that just attracts great people. On the product and eng side, I'd say the tech stack that Figma was built on was really interesting, and the problems that the eng team had to solve were really interesting technical problems. And we created a talent brand around that being an interesting thing, and had a great technical co-founder who attracted some great talent early on. And once you have great talent in, it just snowballs from there. So those were some of the things that make me think we had great people.
Totally. I know that Figma scaled from 1 million to 500 million in ARR during your time there. How do you think you had to evolve yourself throughout that period?
Like any fast growing startup, I think whether you're a leader or not, you've got to think about every 6 to 12 months, like, how do I show up differently? What does the business need me to show up as? How do I need to operate differently? How do I need to think about what tactics need to change? Because you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect better and better results. Yeah, we did replanning all the time because it was really difficult to plan for the whole year because things were changing so much. I'll give you an example. In the early days, there's so much white space between employees that I often think you don't need to give people as much feedback because it's very obvious to everyone the kind of impact they have. But as the company gets bigger, people just need more reinforcement. Are they doing the right things? Are they working on the right things? And so as a leader, you've got to give more feedback as you go. So that's what I've found as one example of how things need to evolve.
Is there anything you're most proud of?
I think the culture that we created, I'm really proud of. As you mentioned, we're known for hiring great people, and that was really fun. I think the brand we built was one that really stood for something special and was really important to me. It was very much based on community, craft, and authenticity. I was really proud of that. Of course, the results I'm proud of, but the results come with all of those inputs. So you've got to be proud of the whole picture.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be proud of. I know you spent a few years at Google as a product marketing manager. What do you think you learned while you were there?
So I worked at Google in 2007 to 2009, and the company was about 20,000 people at the time, which to me felt like a big company. Now it sort of maybe seems small in comparison to what it is today. But to me, it was a big company. And so I learned how Google does marketing, it was my first job in marketing. I hadn't worked in marketing up until that point. So I learned how Google does marketing, which is not normal marketing. But as a result, I learned Google tools to do marketing like AdWords and analytics and things like that. And those skills actually got me the job at Zendesk because I took over the AdWords account from the CEO. I don't regret it at all. I thought it was a great experience, but I always knew that if I wanted to do marketing, I probably needed to go somewhere else to really learn it because Google's brand is so strong. The kind of marketing they do is obviously based upon that really strong brand already. So to me, it was going to be more interesting to learn how do you build a brand like that. So I learned some building blocks that got me the job at Zendesk, basically.
Yeah. So you joined Zendesk a few years after as employee number 13. How did you come across Zendesk?
Yeah, it was super tiny. The Danish founders had just moved the company to San Francisco and they had no network. They had just gotten Series B funding from Benchmark. And so I ended up getting introduced to the CEO through someone I knew. I really hit it off with the CEO. It was a little bit just luck. I did some of my own due diligence. They already had about 1,000 small business customers and certainly had product market fit, but it was very early stages.
So it sounds like you do a lot of diligence on customers when you're looking at startups. Do you have a framework that you think operators should use when they're thinking about joining a new company?
I definitely have a lot of conversations with people looking for jobs who are very focused on the job and the title. And I try to encourage people to think about it more about the company and the opportunity, because you can go get perfectly formatted job for you. But if it's at a poor company, it's just not going to go anywhere and you're not going to learn much. So I try to encourage people to be more prioritizing the company and the opportunity, the product. Do they have, good people backing them more so than anything else?
So what do you think a poor opportunity would look like in that case?
It's just really niche, maybe. The market's not that big. Maybe the product's terrible. It's not differentiated. It's not clear if they have product market fit. I always say that if it's not clear you have product market fit and you work in go to market, then you're going to be working sort of as a product manager until there's product market fit. So maybe you're interested to do that, but my specialty is go to market. So you're not really going to get the most out of me until there's product market fit.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so I guess you joined Zendesk, and what was your experience like there?
It was like true startup in nature. My first day, well, actually the interview I had with the CEO, he called me up the day before and he said, you know what? We don't have an office yet. I thought we were going to have one. So can you tell me where we could meet for the interview? So we met at a bakery in Soma and had the interview there. And all I remember is that it was very clear that he wanted to build a big company. He had a vision for how it was going to get there. He wanted to take it public. It was a foregone conclusion for him. And so he kept asking me multiple times, can you really help us make this big? Which is a funny question to ask, but when your English is not your first language, that's how it comes out. And of course, yes, of course, I'm going to help you make it big. And then I show up. They have an office by the time I show up. They have even internet, which was also important. But they did not have for me a laptop. So the first thing I did when I started was go to the Apple store and buy a laptop on my first day. And I thought, wow, I've definitely joined a startup buying my own laptop. So But it was fun. As I mentioned, I took over the AdWords account from the CEO. We're doing everything from writing blog posts together to figuring out what the most important metrics were and why and how were we performing. So it was just, I jumped out of bed Monday to go to work. I was so excited just to learn all the things.
What I'm noticing is a theme of baked goods in your interview processes. Seems to be that at Zendesk and
True.
Figma. Who knows? Maybe that's the key to hiring great people.
Muffins.
All about the muffins and blackberry pies.
Yeah.
So you spent, I think, around 5+ years at Zendesk. How much did the company scale while you were there?
I joined in 2009, and in May of 2014, we went public. So I had the wonderful opportunity just to be involved in that whole process. I helped write part of the S1, the document you submit to do an IPO. It was so fun and interesting. I basically built out the whole marketing team. I got asked to work on our online business after a time. We started to feel like there wasn't enough focus on the online business, that big customers were kind of hogging a lot of the mind share internally, and that we needed a team that was focused on this online velocity sales motion that we had. So I built a business unit surrounding that. I had a sales team. I had engineers reporting to me. It was really fun to have that cross-functional focus. And towards the end of my time there, I did work more in sales and worked on sales strategy. We wanted to make some changes in the sales team. When you are 6 or 7 years at a tech company, your value is change management. You know how to make things, who to talk to when you want to make a change and how you might communicate it the best. My value came in helping the sales team make some changes and roll those out. That was fun too. We also did an acquisition along the way of a chat company. So being involved in integrating a whole other company into your company. G employees are good at doing that. So that was fun. So I did a lot of different things. It was a great experience.
Sounds incredible. And so what prompted you to leave?
Good question. I think after 7+ years, I felt like I had done a lot and learned a lot and just ready to move on to think about something other than customer service for a while. But it was hard for me to leave. I really thought through, like, why am I doing this and how do I want to do it? For me, it's really important how I leave a company as much as how I begin a company. So I wanted to be thoughtful about that. And yeah, I just was ready for something new in life.
So I guess diving deeper there, what is important to you when you're leaving a company?
Well, as a leader, I would like to think that people feel open about talking about it before they've decided. So, like, if you come to me and you say, I already signed an offer to go somewhere else, there's not a lot I can do with that. But if you come to me and say, hey, I'm not happy and here's why, and it's making me talk to other people, then we can actually still have a conversation about whether that's the right thing or not. And, at the end of the day, I want people to feel like their career is moving forward. So yeah, I had come to the conclusion that probably I wanted to leave, but I hadn't solidified that when I went to the CEO and said, like, look, I feel like it's time for me to move on. And I ended up staying from April to December to wrap things up and hand things off and, make it feel like there wasn't a big gap I was leaving, which actually doesn't really take that long, but emotionally it helps everyone along the way if you are willing to stay as long as they want you to stay to clean things up. So that's what I did.
And so after leaving, did you take a break?
I did. I took a break. I convinced my husband to leave his job and we traveled. We did a lot of things that um, are hard to do when you're working. So one of the quintessential things that was fun to do was we decided to ride dirt bikes, like motorcycles, across the country. Um, so we rode through basically rural America from North Carolina to Oregon, 5,000 miles, which was just super fun. I felt very lucky to be able to take time off like that. Not everyone can do that. And so I was really grateful and appreciative of it every day.
It's amazing. So after riding across America, how did you kind of transition back into the work world?
Well, kind of abruptly. Yeah, I didn't interview with a ton of places. I chatted with a few, but like I said, I met John Lilly and then Dylan, and yeah, really fell in love with the idea of working there. So it didn't take that long to find a new thing and start. And then, first day, it's like guns a-blazing as far as being in the deep end of the pool right away again.
And so I know you've also been an advisor to some amazing companies like Airtable. What does advisory look like for you?
But, it's different. Every company has some similarities for sure, but everyone has sort of a different thing that they're trying to work on. A lot of companies that I talk to are they want to inject more self-service into their business. So sometimes I'm advising companies on that. I've had jobs where people want me to analyze their customer journey. And that's always fun to do because it's really eye-opening for companies to hear someone from the outside say, here's what a customer has to do next to talk to you. And here's what you make them do, what hoop you make them jump through after that. And it's like very, it helps cut through all the bullshit of what to fix next. So that's always fun. A lot of people want to talk to me about pricing and packaging. So I end up having a lot of pricing and packaging conversations. And I really enjoy those because to me, pricing and packaging is one of the most strategic questions that you need to work through. And it's very difficult because there's a lot of inputs to it. There's not a set formula for it. And it feels very make or break. Like it feels very permanent almost. It doesn't have to be, but it feels like a heavy-handed sort of decision to make. So it's hard and it's nice to have people from the outside to help think through those kind of debates. And then a lot of times people aren't really sure who to hire next, what level and why. And so we end up talking about their go-to-market strategy because that helps inform the answers to some of those questions. So those are some of the topics that I end up advising companies on, which is fun.
I saw you recently joined Common Room's board. Are you getting more involved in companies in that capacity, or what are you kind of aiming to do there?
Common Room was one where I met the CEO. I really was intrigued by her. I think she's special, and it's in a space that I know really well. Haven't worked in myself, but I've been a buyer of that space, sales software and marketing software. So that was really a draw for me because it felt very familiar. But I also knew a couple people on the board, so there was a lot of familiarity with joining Common Room's board, and I felt like I could really help Linda with thinking through some of the questions that she had. So it's been really fun so far, but it's still really early. I haven't even joined an official board meeting yet. So ask me in 6 months how it's going.
Sounds good. And so now that you left Figma pretty recently, what are you spending your days like?
I'm advising some companies. I joined the Common Room board, but I'm also just taking time to think and reflect more, which is nice. I'm thinking a lot right now about storytelling and how I can be a better storyteller, both in my professional and work life. And that's been a goal of mine for a while. So I'm really appreciating just having more time to think about that and practice it. So yeah,
So I guess taking a step back for folks who are earlier in their careers, like what kind of advice do you generally give them?
I think we're in this culture right now where people say they want to have feedback a lot. Companies ask you what you thought of their service after every single flight you take, like you get surveys all the time. And I think feedback is good, but um, for me, there was a big change in my career when I started thinking about feedback differently. And I'll explain. Um, it's very easy to take it personally because it's like an attack on you as a person. And I started thinking about it differently because it was like really distressing. I would dwell on it and think I was a horrible person and all this kind of stuff. And I realized I needed to evolve that way of reacting to feedback. Because the worst thing you can do is be defensive and fight it. So I said to myself, you know what? If someone gives me critical feedback, the first thing I think of is, well, this is their perception of me. And it doesn't necessarily define me. Maybe there's a truth to it that's true. So I don't want to be completely self-aware, but this is their perception. So how do I need to do a better job of changing their perception? And that switch in how I reacted to feedback really helped me hear the feedback better and figure out how can I change it? Because if you're just taking it personally, you're sort of not then cognizing how do I evolve this? And when you want to change people's perception, you need to overcompensate for it. So if someone gives me feedback that maybe I don't speak up enough, then I need to think about how do I speak up more than the average person? And maybe I need to tell people, hey, I just want you to know I'm really thinking about how do I speak up more? And if you tell people what you're working on, then they're maybe more likely to watch for it and help you and help point out when you're doing it more. But if they don't know what you're working on, then they might not notice it. And then they don't give you any positive reinforcement and sort of you're stuck in limbo. So I think how people perceive feedback can be really powerful when you're early in your career, because hopefully you're getting it. And how you manage it, I think is important. There's this woman I know, who I've met who I really like. She's written a few books. Her name's Carla Harris. She was a big executive at Morgan Stanley for many decades. And she has this saying that, perception is the co-pilot to reality. And it's this whole genre around feedback and how it's really like changing people's perceptions of you because, how you show up and you have control over, how people perceive you. So I really like her books and what she has to say, Carla Harris.
Okay, we'll add it to the show notes. Great recommendation.
There you go.
So I guess looking back, is there anything you would have done differently in your career?
I'm not really that kind of person, Ben, but
Okay.
when I was in college, I started out as a pre-med student and I took a year of chemistry and actually didn't do that bad, but I got really scared to take organic chemistry my sophomore year, and I decided to change my major. And it was really a decision based on fear and lack of confidence. And I don't know if that would have taken me on a different path. Maybe it would have, maybe it wouldn't have. But if I could go back to my 19-year-old self, I would say, at least just try organic chemistry.
Potentially a totally different career path. Who knows?
Yeah. No regrets, though.
No regrets. I mean, I totally understand that. Well, amazing. I really appreciate you taking the time to join. And, I think your path is really inspiring for a lot of people and just a lot to learn from in what you've done over the years. So thank you so much for the time to share.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
I'm super excited to have Notion sponsoring us today. Notion is used by thousands of startups around the world as their connected workspace for everything from engineering specs to new hire onboarding to fundraising. If you're a startup, you can get 6 months free of Notion with unlimited AI, which is valued at over $6,000. You can access the limitless power of AI right inside of Notion to build and scale your company and team with one tool. So head over to notion.com/startups and select Next Play in the drop-down partner list, and then enter the code NEXTPLAY at the end of the form.